Greetings, fellow Star Warriors, and welcome back to Unrepentant Geeking, the show where a geek can be a geek. As always, I am your host, Shaun, and even if I don't quite sound like it, yeah, I'm still suffering from a major case of the sick, but that is not going to stop me from talking and recording and going on and on about Star Wars because, oh my god, Star Wars! Quick, guys, hum the theme. No, just stop. You both failed. You failed. God.
Look, we're recording this at 10 in the morning. I didn't go to sleep until 4. What do you expect from me right now?
Oh, friggin' who. My heart bleeds for you. Meanwhile, I've been working nonstop and with this cold. So, you'll get no sympathy from me, boyo.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
I don't care. Moving on. Yes, this weekend saw the release of, the biggest movie ever. I mean, ever.
Officially.
I mean, Avatar, watch out. Star Wars is gunning for you, baby. And I hope it takes you down, you damn blue freak. No, I don't hate Avatar.
It did. The Jurassic World crowned.
Yeah, thank friggin' God. Not that I hated Jurassic World, but the thought of that movie, that mediocre nonsense, being the number one opening of all time just broke my friggin' heart. So I'm so glad a far more deserving film got it. And yes, in case you couldn't tell, I friggin' loved The Force Awakens. But before we go any further, I should clear something up, make something very clear. There will be spoilers in this.
I'm going to spoil the crap out of this. So if you haven't seen it yet, come back another time.
That's right. If you don't want to know that BB-8 is secretly made of chocolate, oops.
And Darth Snape does kill the Jedi Dumbledore.
Oda,
hey,
that was too far even for you.
No, I mean we've given the spoiler warnings already. I mean,
yeah,
you got to give 30 seconds.
So let's talk. Let's talk about the big thing in this movie. Sephiroth kills Aerys.
All right. But seriously, there will be unrepentant spoilers in this episode of Unrepentant Geeking about The Force Awakens and all the tie-in material and everything.
That's right. If you haven't watched it yet and you still want to watch it, click the little Add Watch Later button, which is down the bottom right-hand corner of the YouTube function. Click that and come back and watch it later.
Damn straight. So make sure, or stop listening to this on iTunes or however you're watching this, because there's a bunch of ways you can watch it. Because we want you to come. We want you to. Oh God. We want you.
The dark side is strong with this podcast.
Look, I can barely talk. Give me a break. Okay. We want you to hear. We want you to join in the discussion. We want you to be part of the whole big Unrepentant Geeking celebration of Star Wars. But if we're going to talk about the movie, we got to talk about the movie. All right, and since my voice may go out in any second, I'm going to start us off. Yeah, I loved the freaking hell out of this movie. By the way, before we go any further, I just want to make it clear that Oda, you guys should introduce yourselves. Introduce yourselves first. Wow, I'm out of it.
Very well. Representing the dark side of the Force, of course, is myself, Lorne, Oda, or Nobunaga, Horning. A pleasure to meet your acquaintance. And of course, I will be defeating this Jedi, this light side Force user, here today.
Well, I am Petros Ioannou, the writer and creator of My Life as a Video Game.
And the hero. You're the hero of My Life as a Video Game.
Yes, and apparently I am the hero of it, and I am representing the light side of the Force today, the Jedi. And I believe that by the end of this, you will see The Force Awakens from my certain point of view.
And of course, I'm Shaun Carterfeld, representing the sick side of the Force. Not the, oh my God, that was so awesome side of the Force, the, oh my God, can I go lay down in bed now, please, side of the Force. Look, the Force is awakening. That means the Force needs to sleep. That means the Force can get sick. That means sometimes the Force just wants to call in and drink some tea and rest. But no, the Force can't ever do that because you little bastards just... Sorry, I went someplace dark there.
Yes.
But anyways, all right. So I'm going to start us off real quick. I absolutely loved The Force Awakens. I thought it was great. I don't think it was perfect. And I've never seen a perfect movie. And if I'm honest, it wasn't even my favorite movie of the year. My favorite movie of the year, FYI, is a tie right now for between The Martian and Mad Max. But I still think if I had to give The Force Awakens a number, a score, whatever, I'd still give it like a 95 out of 100. I still think it's an amazing triumph of a film. I've seen it twice already. I will be going to see it again later this week with some friends who have yet to see it. I will probably see it at least 2 or 3 more times in theaters. I love it. I love it where it's taking the franchise. I love the new characters so much. I thought it was a wonderful, wonderful movie, and I can't wait to hear what you guys thought of it. But before we get to that, I do have to say one thing. If you're part of this growing idiot brigade who is saying that Rey is a Mary Sue, you can go fuck yourselves. No, seriously. There's a difference between saying, oh, I don't like Rey as a character. Fine. That's your subjective opinion. But objectively, the idea that she is a Mary Sue is such bullshit. And if she, we didn't give this kind of grief to male characters when they're badass and awesome. If Rey, if it was Finn who had been doing everything that Rey was doing, nobody'd be making that kind of bullshit claim. So do not fucking tell me there isn't a bit of sexism going on there, because there is. What Rey is doing is no more extraordinary than any other hero in this franchise does on a regular basis. Say hello to the kid who has had no combat training, has had all 5 minutes of force training, and he is able to fucking blow up the Death Star, who after a week with Yoda apparently is now a fully trained Jedi, according to Yoda in Return of the Jedi. So yeah, maybe she is a Mary Sue. If she is, she's in good fucking company, but she isn't a Mary Sue, and that is an idiotic term to be using anyways. Okay, I got that off my chest. And while we're staying with anger and dark side, Oda, what did you think of The Force Awakens?
Well, if we're talking in just sort of a general overarching term, I really did like the film, of course. I think I've maybe met a handful of people so far who didn't like the film or thought it was just okay. Now, we obviously can talk a bit freely here, and yes, I would have preferred that Han Solo not die in the first movie, just as a personal preference, but I do realize, A, Harrison Ford kind of not wanting to be a part of the franchise anymore. He said that countless times. But also, they really did need to sort of confirm the baddie as being capable, because let's face it here. Rey took down a wounded Kylo Ren in a fight in the first movie, and he was only saved by whether it be the Force or random Ex Machina, the ground breaking and pulling them apart. So you had to give him something in order to make him seem like a capable villain. And of course, I always empathize more with the villains. But even this guy, by the time my friends and I had walked out of the theater, we had already proclaimed him Hot Topic Sith. Even though I know he's not an actual Sith, but we'd already proclaimed him Hot Topic Sith. And we didn't particularly kind of like him, but we all kind of understood that he was going to go through a transformation. That clearly was going to happen between now and the next movie, or during the next movie. And he was going to evolve as a villain, and we're kind of waiting to see where that goes. But all in all, as a whole, love the movie. Picked apart as many possible references or hints that we possibly could, and we all walked out of there really enjoying that movie.
All right, Petros, and now for the light side perspective.
I came out of that movie with the same, feeling pretty much the same. I really, really enjoyed the movie. I thought it wasn't perfect, no, but it was exactly what it needed to be. I actually would have been a little bit annoyed had it been completely perfect, frankly, because it's exactly what it needed to be, in that it brought back the franchise to its more nostalgic roots, while opening up a lot more for the sequels to do a lot more. And here's the thing: is that this movie is A New Hope in so many ways. Not just that it follows the plot of A New Hope almost to a fault, like story beat for story beat, but that it also it leaves a lot of room open for the the second movie, The Empire Strikes Back, of this trilogy, to be the best one, basically, to be even better. It allows it to do what Empire did best, which was explore new ground, explore these characters a bit more, explore the nature of the Force and things like that. So I don't think it was a perfect movie, but I think it was a fantastic, fun movie, with maybe the best first half of a Star Wars movie ever. Because the first half of this movie is really, really, really good. I love the characters. I love Rey. I think Finn's a lot of fun. Poe is surprisingly underused, but is great whenever he is used. I mean, he's. I think part of the reason he was underused was because, sadly, yes, they do kill Han Solo, and Han Solo is in the majority of this movie. And Poe and Han's characters seem pretty similar, actually, when you think about it, with Poe being a bit more initially noble than Han was.
It's interesting to note that originally, and they talked about this, that originally Poe was actually going to die. He was going to die in the crash on the planet, and then they kind of JJ changed his mind after they cast the part and they loved him so much and they realized there was real potential there. So that is one reason why the character is absent through so much of the movie.
I didn't know that.
He was originally dead.
And I didn't actually know. That's interesting. I mean, like, I could definitely see Poe taking over the reins of being the cocky one from the rest of the group. I'm curious as to what Finn is going to do, what his arc is going to be after this movie, because a lot of his his arc in this movie is kind of funny because it almost represents in many ways the reversal of the sort of, because I could very clearly tell it wasn't just a friendship bond between her and between him and Rey, that they were having, and it was I felt like it was almost a reversal of like, well, now that he's no longer kind of, he needs to be saved. It was almost a reversal of like the damsel in distress, but it was like the dude in distress.
And I think that was very deliberate.
Yeah. And I think like Rey as a character may be my favorite Jedi character, actually. Like, I love Luke Skywalker, and I still want to see where Rey goes. But like, I know she's not actually a Jedi yet. But like,
it's early days, and I've only seen the movie twice. And but if a year from now, if I decided to do a my top 10 favorite Star Wars characters list, I pretty much guarantee that Finn and Rey would make the cut.
Yeah.
I love these two characters. I love the arc they go in. I love, even while I somewhat hate, but in a loving fashion, where they leave them. I only hate it because it's like, I want to know what happens now. You know? To me, that's the sign of a good movie, because it's like, I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait 2 years. Are you insane?
Well,
I need to know.
I didn't realize this until yesterday. We don't have to wait 2 years. Only it's May 26th.
Well,
it's
I don't want to have to wait. I don't want to have to wait 2 days. I want to have to wait 2 hours.
Yeah, I think we'd all like a box trilogy right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well,
God.
yes.
Rogue
One, I love you. I'm going to let you speak, but right now I'd really rather Episode 8 was next.
All right. So Kylo Ren as a villain, I think I think the first half of the movie introduced him as very powerful and does some things that are so powerful that even like Vader and the Emperor have never really been able to do, which does bring up an interesting thing about who exactly Snoke is, and that's something that I'm interested to see. But I don't. He was maybe one of the weaker elements of the movie for me. Was Supreme Leader Snoke, very thinly veiled Kim Jong-il reference there. But Kylo Ren as a character starts out really villainous, very evil, and extremely powerful. He can stop a blaster with the Force. He can extract information from people's minds, something that Vader could never have done. I mean, imagine if Vader could have done that in the original Star Wars. I mean, would have gotten the information out of Leia pretty easily. That's but the second he takes his mask off, he becomes a very different character to what we've seen so far. He becomes a lot more vulnerable. He does become a lot prettier, and at times a little more emotionally unstable. In many ways, he's kind of the whiny baby, like angry Anakin, but done right. If you understand my meaning, like. A lot of Anakin's whining in the prequels he's done better here by Kylo Ren, basically, by Adam Driver's character. And we see him take that one step that, sadly, that Luke wouldn't do. He wouldn't kill his father and go to the dark side. And Kylo Ren does do that. He kills his father, Han Solo, which, for me, I'm not going to lie, is my least favorite aspect of the movie. I really didn't like the fact they killed Han Solo. And I feel like I understand why, because, like, once again, as you said, Shaun, it's, or was it, I can't remember which one of you said it, but yeah, Harrison Ford wanted out. He wanted out of the movie, and
Well, more than
the
that,
series.
I think more than just that. I think thematically, Han, clearly is taking the Obi-Wan role in this film.
Well, that's
And he's now the inspiration for a new generation. He's going to be the one whose example they're going to try and follow. And I do think for the film to have the emotional resonance, Han's death feels appropriate. It doesn't feel like, it's not like they didn't, it's not like, we're in the last 2 minutes of the film and suddenly Han slips on a banana peel, conks his head and dies like that. That would have been a stupid, pointless death. His death is clearly going to be one of the hinge points for the rest, maybe not just this trilogy, but maybe for the foreseeable future of the entire franchise. It's this crucial moment for all three of our lead characters. And, there's a lot of reasons Han apparently, I don't know if I want to say needed to die, but did die. I'm not bothered by, look, I'm bothered in the sense that, me, I'm a big happy ending guy. I like it when they lived happily ever after. I said going into this movie, I desperately wanted to know that Han and Leia did get together and have a kid. Be careful what you wish for. But to me, in terms of the overall thematic, the themes that have driven Star Wars from the beginning, this death felt very appropriate, even as it did break my heart a little.
Yeah.
Oda, what did you think?
Sorry to interrupt for a second, but it's not that I don't think the death was appropriate. I think it was actually really appropriate for this movie and setting up this trilogy. I just don't think it served the character very well. But I'll get into that in a bit. Oda, your thoughts?
Oda, what did you think of the death of Han?
Like I said before in my kind of overarching summary, it was appropriate in the sense that, of course, Harrison Ford, etc., etc. Would I have preferred it to go down a different way? I mean, you kind of almost want Han Solo to die behind the controls of the Falcon, That would almost kind of seem more thematically appropriate, but that doesn't serve the villain, because let's be honest, for all of my love of the dark side, we all know that you really can't have a hero without a villain. Whether that villain be society at large, as big as, or a galactic spanning empire, or down to a single man, or whatever have you, or beast, etc. Single entity. You have to have the villain be served to a degree to inspire and to craft the story. So I agree that something needed to happen, and Han Solo was the most capable of providing that, because let's face it, you can't kill Luke, not at least till the end, at least the end of the second movie. You can't kill Leia.
You monster.
I know. But I mean, no, because that killing Luke, let's hypothetically say you kill Luke at the end of second movie, Kylo Ren does it, or say he goes down fighting the Emperor figure, whether that be secretly Jar Jar or Darth Plagueis or whomever Snoke turns out to be. His death would be the next step in the oh shit, stuff got serious.
Real quick, my Snoke theory, he's actually the Wizard of Oz. Think about it. It makes sense.
No. He basically is the evil Wizard of Oz. Yeah, it's like a giant guy behind a curtain.
And of course, we're all in agreement. He's not actually like 20 feet tall, right? He's probably just a dude.
God, I hope not. That would make for a really kind of goofy final battle.
Yeah, I actually thought when I first saw him be 20 feet tall, I didn't realize it was a hologram at first. I actually thought that was kind of cool. I thought it was different.
I was really relieved that turned out to be a hologram, because I'm sorry, but that would have been like, whoa, wait. There's a 20-foot tall alien species in the Star Wars universe, and we're just finding out about this now. I'm like, where the fuck did this guy? And then I was like, oh, hologram, of course.
Well, why wouldn't there be? Just, I mean, it's a huge universe.
Yes, but that also happens to be a master of the dark side and can take over the Empire. And frankly, I've read Aftermath. Snoke shows up in Aftermath. Snoke at the very end. It's basically Snoke shows up at the end of the Aftermath novel in the same way that at the end of a movie you have, like, you know, the real villain
Thanos
stroking a cat in the shadows. You know what I mean? So we don't necessarily get a great look at him, but it's pretty clear he ain't 20 feet fucking tall.
Yeah, no, he's doing the exact same thing the Emperor did
Right.
in the previous movies. Giant floating head, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So, just my buddies were just like, no, man, he's probably going to be like 20 feet tall, and he'll have this massive lightsaber, and Luke will be able to fight him. And I'm like, no.
He's Ant-Man.
Yeah. Now
he's overcompensating. He's Lord Farquaad.
Yes. Now, there was something I did want to touch on, and I kind of feel that now probably kind of the right time to bring it up because Petros did mention Finn. Now, I walked out of that movie going, that was a pretty good wrap up. That was it was quite nice. I got home and I was starting to chat with some friends, and a friend of mine basically said that when he had gone and seen the movie, he and many other people in the theater walked out going, it was a great movie, but they didn't like how they treated Finn. Now, I'm going to use their words. And, of course, you can likely kind of tell, I guess, a demographic that I'm talking about when I said this, but they were upset that they treated Finn like and I am quoting them, the magical Negro trope. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to shut this down right now, but tell me where your perspective comes from. And for them, they were upset that in the marketing leading into the movie, everything that we saw showed Finn as the Jedi figure, as the hero. And they were excited that there was going to be, in the Star Wars universe, a movie series that isn't precisely known for its great diversity, that there was going to be this heroic lead figure who was African American, who had the Force, who had this power, and was going to use it for good. But what we got in the movie was not a great hero. We kind of got a guy who just wanted to run away, who was afraid of authority, who basically served the plot, and that's kind of all he was.
See, I disagree with that. Okay, first of all, your friends are using the magical Negro term incorrectly, because the magical Negro is the character archetype of the wise character who's often usually older, who comes in and helps the white characters get through everything and has all the answers and isn't really a character in their own right. So first of all, that's a misuse of that term. Film nerd, you've been film nerd. Okay, more seriously, I think it's important to note that I think Finn is a very heroic figure. I just think he's a heroic figure in a way we've never seen before in a Star Wars movie. He's somebody who has spent his entire life being indoctrinated and brainwashed into this culture. He's been raised to see the First Order as this unstoppable force, and he knows he's privy to a lot of the secrets. He's privy to the weapons, to all the terrible things that are coming, okay? And he reaches this moral point where he realizes he can't serve them anymore. He can't be one of them. He can't be a monster. But at the same time, deep down, he doesn't believe you can win a fight against them. And so his first instinct is to just get the hell away from it. It's not that he's a coward. It's that he sees fighting the First Order as a hopeless, pointless cause. Until he's given a reason to overcome in classic hero fashion his own fears by finding something bigger than himself to fight for, which is in this case, Rey. And once he does, he goes full force into battle. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't run away from Kylo Ren. He knows Kylo Ren's going to kick his ass. He knows he's got no chance in that lightsaber fight. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't run away. He stands up and does his best and even manages to hold his own briefly before being just overwhelmed by the sheer power of Kylo Ren. And where we leave him, he is on the verge of he basically makes the choice. He makes the hero's journey's choice. He decides he's going to confront it. He's going to go forward. And it's clear when he wakes up, it's doubtful his first response is just going to be to run away. He's going to probably find out about Rey, and he's going to go, all right, I got to match her. And for all we know, he could still become a Jedi. We don't know he doesn't have any Force powers. He does seem to have some ability, he's just not as powerful as Rey. I mean, it's also worth noting that there is they just released back on Force Friday, they released these 3 young adult novels that were really quite good, each telling a story about Han, Leia, and Luke from during the trilogy. Okay? As a follow-up, they had Greg Rucka, who's one of the all-time great comic book writers, and wrote one of those books, the Han Solo book. As a follow-up, last week, or this week, they released another book, which gives us 3 novellas all in one book, telling stories of Rey, Finn, and Poe Dameron leading up to The Force Awakens. Okay? And that book now makes it very clear that actually Poe is an extraordinary example for a stormtrooper. That he's like this incredible warrior, but that he's being held back by his own self-doubts and by the fact that he's realizing he's fighting for the bad. It's like that one famous sketch, are we bad guys? We've got skulls on our helmet. You know what I mean? And so I admit he's definitely used for comedy at times, but they all are. So is Han. And again, speaking of Han, it's not like Han was some sort of perfect shining hero in the original trilogy ever. Need I remind you that in the first freaking movie, he goes charging after the stormtroopers and then runs away when he realizes he's bitten off more than he can chew. It's one of the classic moments from the first film. So I could see where they're coming from, and I understand that it's a topic that some people are sensitive from. And maybe, as a white guy, I don't, I have a privilege that gives me a different. But I don't agree that he isn't a heroic figure. And I do think that as we go forward with this new trilogy and with the franchise, people are going to see just how goddamn heroic Finn really is. He's one of the 2 main heroes of this film.
Yeah, definitely. I'm interested to see where Finn goes because, to a certain extent, Finn has this thing in this movie where he services the plot more than any other character in a way, as in the plot rather than the actual story. As in, he's the one who takes the story, the plot from beat to beat, basically. He's the one who breaks Poe out. He's the one who who finds BB-8. He's the one who decides, let's go find the Resistance. He's the one who decides to go and rescue Rey when she's been captured. And he's the one who really drives the plot forward. Which is interesting because usually your protagonist, and let's be honest, Rey is the main protagonist of this movie, is the one who drives the plot forward. In this case, Rey wasn't actually driving the plot, but she was driving the story.
And that's why I would say that they're actually co-leads. This is as much his movie as it is hers. She gets the big final heroic moment, but as you said, none of this happens if not for him. None of this happens if not for Finn.
Yeah.
Finn makes that first courageous choice. He decides, fuck it. Even if it means I'm going to die, I'm getting out of here.
Now, to the point you vaguely just touched on earlier, I am actually of a firm believer that he is also force sensitive. Because let's be some realsies. Let's be real here. In the previous or in the original trilogy, there were 2 Force users. One was latent and one was vaguely trained. There was Luke and Leia. Now, I think while we're not precisely going for that precise dynamic here, I do think we're going to end up with 2 Force-sensitive leads. But I think they would really be well-serviced to actually train this guy as well, because what's kind of cooler than 1 Force user, and that's 2.
And it would make sense, actually, because if you think about, like I was saying, Finn's role in this series, in my opinion, Poe fills in Han Solo's role, and Rey fills in Luke's role. Where does Finn fall into this? Finn fall in this in the new trilogy exactly? What exactly is his role going to be in the new movies going forward? Because now that he's kind of serviced the plot in the first movie and he's rebelled, he's part of the Resistance. Now is he just like another Resistance fighter? He's just there along for the ride. So I'm interested to see what exactly they do with him. And making him a Force sensitive, just not as powerful as Rey, would be an interesting step for him to have two Force users. I mean, it's not like, I mean, as much as we hate the prequels and all here, it's not.
I don't hate the
I
prequels.
still do. Um,
Well, you're a big baby.
Look, I'm never going to say I like the prequels. I don't like them. When I say I hate, I just don't like them at all. I think they're shit movies, honestly. But I'm not going to whine and bitch about them. But the point is that
You just did.
I'm just that's not whining and bitching, Shaun. That's just saying that I don't like them. What I'm trying to point out here is, if you let me speak, is that
Why should I?
because you invited me here.
Did I?
Either that, or I'm or I'm interrupting a call here, and it's getting very awkward. Um,
Well, I didn't want to say anything, Petros.
all right, so two Jedi users is not something unfamiliar to the Star Wars series. As I said, even though the majority of us don't like the prequels, there were two Jedi users in every single one of those movies. There was either Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon or Obi-Wan and Anakin. And that's very possible to do that again. It didn't. Neither of which slowed the story down. It's not like they were definitely missing a Han Solo type character throughout the prequels, in my opinion. But this the two of them being Jedi serves the plot well, and two new Jedi serves the plot great as well. So I'm interested to see what they do with Finn, because I can see what they're going to do with Poe, and I can see what they're going to do with Rey, but I can't really see what they're going to do with Finn just yet. And on the topic of Finn and him being funny, this is the funniest Star Wars movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that.
The humor in this is so good.
Yep. I agree. There's so many great, wonderful, funny moments, and it's funny in the way that it's important to note. It's funny in the way that you're laughing with it, not at it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't hate the prequels, but I will admit I did laugh a number of times throughout the prequels, and a lot of them were probably not times I was supposed to be laughing.
Like Darth Vader's "No."
I'm thinking more any time Lucas was trying to do romance.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That was just cringeworthy, though.
So okay, so I would always give Attack of the Clones this. I thought at times Attack of the Clones had some of the funniest one-liners in it, and mostly delivered by Ewan McGregor. Because Ewan McGregor is
hail the McGregor.
Ewan McGregor, I would happily see as a Force ghost, as Obi-Wan's Force ghost, because he was brilliant. Like he managed to overcome George Lucas's terrible directing of the prequels and even the terrible writing.
You know, he was in The Force Awakens.
Yes, I do know that, actually, and as was Simon Pegg and Daniel Craig and Frank Oz,
and the original Obi-Wan.
Oh yeah, and technically Annie Guinness when they took Afraid and took away the F and it's like Ray.
Actually, it was Betrayed.
Was it Betrayed? I thought it was Afraid.
Nope.
Huh.
Obi-Wan never says. I don't think Obi-Wan ever says Afraid. He says, you betrayed your father, and that they took out the Ray part of Betrayed. Yeah. And in that scene where she touches the lightsaber, which is a gloriously trippy, wonderful scene, one of the best scenes in the. I mean, and FYI, while we're on the subject, one of the scenes that really shows that no, Rey isn't a fucking Mary Sue. Thank you very much, because when Rey gets the call, what does she do? She runs like hell. She gets overwhelmed. She runs. She's not some perfect shining heroine. She's in fact,
the majority of the movie, she's doing that. She's like running. She like runs head on to something and then goes, "Oh shit, I can't handle this." Basically.
Well, or she, like she's given this incredible opportunity to be the co-pilot with Han, and it's clear she wants it badly, but she's prepared to throw it away because of this ridiculous. And she knows it's a ridiculous, pointless hope that family's going to come back and pick her up. But I mean, we'll talk more about that. Let's see. So if I had a major complaint about The Force Awakens, and it's interesting to talk about the prequels, because say what you will about the prequels, but the prequels had some amazing action scenes. I think, if anything, prequels did well, it was fights.
Yeah.
The best fights in the whole trilogy are in the prequels.
The lightsabers, you mean specifically, right?
Those, but not just those. There's other, the large-scale battles, the space battles. The space battle in Revenge of the Sith is fucking insane. The one that opens the game, the one that opens the movie. Oh my god, that's glorious.
I will agree. I kind of know where you're going, but carry on.
Let me finish. And say what you will. I mean, they were so good that, frankly, when you go back and you watch A New Hope, you're kind of like, Obi-Wan, Vader, what the fuck happened? You guys went from being this to barely able to hit each other's swords. I'm like, I mean, it really does, and it really kind of actually makes Luke look kind of pathetic. Because it's like, hey, Luke, this is what an actual Jedi can do. Why aren't you doing this? And you know, so and if I have a complaint about The Force Awakens, I don't think visually, it is a gorgeous movie. Okay, it is a wonderfully shot, wonderfully staged movie. There's so many amazing imagery, but in terms of actual action, there's not an action scene in the movie that comes close to anything in the prequels. I love the final lightsaber battle thematically. I think it works as drama, but taken on its own as an action scene, it's just okay. And the final, you know, the attack on Starkiller Base is very anemic. I'm like, where are they have at least one Star Destroyer. Where's their fucking Star Destroyers? I mean, it definitely felt a little rote. The whole space battle at the end felt a little bit like we're doing this because we got to do this.
Yeah, like okay, I'll definitely agree with that. And in terms, and this is where Force Awakens does fall apart a little bit for me, is the run on Starkiller Base and a lot of stuff surrounding Starkiller Base in general, it being like, oh, another Death Star, but bigger. And even the characters in the movie say that, basically. Like, even Han says, so it's bigger, big deal.
Well, that doesn't bother me so much because how many times in the real world have we gone back to technology, even when some of that technology, militarily speaking, hasn't always been successful? How many times have we gone back and refined stuff, even when it's failed, because militaries get an idea in their head and they like to stick with it, even sometimes to their own detriment?
Well, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was, it's there, and then in terms of the story, it doesn't carry the same weight the Death Star ever did. The fight to destroy it is like, it feels like it's there because they needed to destroy a Death Star, basically.
I'll put it to you this way. You could have had Starkiller Base just be a base, leave out the super weapon bit, and you could have cut out all that, and the movie could have still worked. It's just, instead, Poe doesn't do anything. You don't get that final assault that just focuses on Han and them trying to get there, and maybe they need to blow it up for other reasons.
I like the combination of the fact that instead of like it just being an assault on a star or on a base or anything, it was like a combination of like people on the ground and people were like assaulting the base from above, working together. I did like that. On the other hand, I feel like honestly they should have failed to destroy Starkiller Base to a certain extent. That would have actually led to it being a much bigger threat. And also,
what did you think?
But I will say this. I will say this. When you say the action scenes, aside from that final assault, and yes, the lightsaber battle, I was a little unimpressed with, honestly. And I think that's another thing of J.J. Abrams saying, okay, let's do it really more like the original. It was just kind of like, so you decided to do it less interesting.
Well, no, I mean, it makes sense also because Rey and Finn aren't trained. I mean, Finn clearly has some, melee combat training.
True, but
he's not an expert. And Rey clearly has some experience. I mean, it makes sense the fight wouldn't be as dramatic as Duel of the Fates.
Yeah,
because
what I mean is
that was three fighters at the top of it.
I find the fact that Kylo Ren and this should have been a much better duelist, honestly, with a lightsaber, because he has had training all of his life.
He didn't get fucking shot in the chest with a fucking bowcaster.
True.
Which the movie goes out of its way to establish is an incredibly destructive weapon.
Yeah, that's true, actually. But like, so anyway, yeah. And the lightsaber battle does work thematically, and this is like, so where the prequels, at least the first two prequel lightsaber movies, failed, was that they weren't very interesting thematically. They were just flashy fights. And then in Revenge of the Sith, it was a lot more interesting because it was thematically perfect. And I think that is honestly my favorite lightsaber fight, is the one of Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Let me just say that this is not a major complaint.
No, not at all.
But I do think it's worth noting. Oda, what did you think of the action in The Force Awakens?
I think it is representative of where the characters were.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
with that.
Kylo Ren. Looking at Kylo Ren as a character, he does look like the whiny, hot topic Sith that our group of friends named him as, because he lashes out a lot. And yes, it's the dark side. Yes, he's embracing every emotion and lashing out because that's the dark side. But
I like that he was tempted by the light. That was an interesting angle on it.
That was a bit of an interesting angle, and he kind of quenched that thirst for the light by killing his father.
Or did he?
We'll see. Now,
right.
The thing is, though, I think that Snoke, probably gave him a great deal of Force training, but not a lot of lightsaber training. Likely because Snoke himself isn't a big lightsaber guy, and because one of the complaints that I remember hearing about the prequels was there was just so many lightsaber fights, and they weren't meaningful, like thematically and emotionally. They were a thrill, but they weren't fulfilling, except for, of course, the big fights, the meaningful ones. But there were so many lightsabers in the prequels, whereas you would say look to the originals, and they come out, but they're not used all that much. Anyway, getting beyond all that, though, everyone was sloppy. From Kylo Ren to, Rey and Finn, everyone was sloppy. They had a moment or two where they'd pull off a good move, but they didn't have, the form training. They didn't have, from 1 to 7, they didn't have the different forms of lightsaber combat because none of them looked like they were trained, and that came across.
I will agree with that. I will agree.
Yeah, it did look like they were just banging the lightsabers against each other, or in the case of Finn and the Stormtrooper, banging it against, some sort of electronic stun thing. But to that, though, I think, if I had to guess, that they are using this time in the filming to train to get farther and farther along that path of choreographed combat. Get that choreography down, because that is something the prequels did do quite well. The choreography, great, but I think we'll see as the movies progress, we'll get more and more. And I think that'll be a nice progression because, let's face it, if Rey and Finn were pulling off choreography moves in the first movie, it wouldn't be impressive. We wouldn't have to wait.
It's a better first movie lightsaber fight than the first movie lightsaber fight from the original first movie.
I didn't think they did the fight wrong. I think they did the fight the correct way. I'm just pointing out that in general, while I liked, I thought there were good action scenes. I do think that going forward, I do think it's at least worth noting. This is something for the prequel haters. There are some things the prequels did better.
Now you also say the space battles and but honestly, I feel like the action scenes in the battles themselves, like there wasn't the lightsaber fight and the final fight on anything that didn't involve the last 20 minutes basically, I think were really good. I think they were shot brilliantly. You could clearly see the action. You could see there was emotion behind the action. And it was just shot way better than even than the prequels. I'm going to be honest. Like the prequels, the action at times was a clusterfuck. Like you couldn't tell what the fuck was going on half the time.
There were some good. I think the best action scene, as in just straight on fighting, was at Maz Kanata.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. That was
with them swooping in, the way they come in from the distance over the lake, and the way they just they're pinpointing out specific stormtroopers, and just that big moment of I need a weapon, you have a weapon, and just and Traitor, and just that whole the emotion of it, and then him tracking down her, and just all of it. All right, so I think by this point we've established, I think it's safe to say all three of us really enjoyed the movie, correct?
Yeah.
So let's dig in a little bit into the details. Oda, what did you think of the character of Maz Kanata?
For Maz, I don't know, it almost kind of appears that she's the new Yoda figure. Mm-hmm. She's a short alien who's maybe Force sensitive. I kind of don't know. And I think she said she wasn't, but
she says she wasn't a Jedi, but that she knew of the Force.
Yeah, she's probably Force sensitive. I'm just gonna go on a limb guess, but she probably won't display, training, that sort of thing. But
let me ask, you want to see more of her?
Oh yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely want to see more of that.
It's interesting to note that in an earlier draft, and you can see in an earlier version of the film, and you can actually see the leftovers from this in the trailer, because she's the one handing Leia the lightsaber in that trailer, which doesn't happen in the movie. So she was originally going to have a bigger role. Do you think Petros, you think we'll see her again in episodes 8 and 9?
I think it's very possible. I don't think she's going to fulfill the same role as Yoda. I think that's actually going to go down to more Luke really more than anything else. Not in the small alien kind of way, because unless Luke goes through some really drastic changes anytime soon. I mean, the beard is one thing, but that might be a bit too far. He's fulfilling the roles of both Obi-Wan and of Yoda in
Well,
the sequel.
Han was
Han's
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan, but not really. Like, he's only Obi-Wan as in, like, he was the guy in the previous trilogies and now he's a bit older. He's not really mentory in the same way that Obi-Wan was.
He's clearly I mean, he's not a mentor in the Force, but he is clearly a mentor to both Rey and to Finn. But all right, so let me ask, what do you think of how they handled Leia, Petros?
I thought Leia has a limited role, and I think Leia, and I think one of my big problems with the movie in general is how little they go into the universe and what they don't really set up the universe, and I feel a bit confused in this place. Like, I feel like I had a better grasp of what the state of the universe was in the original Star Wars than I did in this movie. Like, because, and especially going into it, they should have realized that they should have recognized this is following up from the previous trilogy. This is following up from all the prequels and everything. Where's the universe now? There's some vague references to Republic and to the First Order, and Leia is leading Resistance. So I was never really clear as to what Leia's role is. I mean, like, obviously, like, the expanded universe, which no longer exists, she became like one of the leaders of the Republic. The Republic exists in this, but it's not based on Coruscant. It's based on Hosnian, and like, I think a lot of the universe setup could have been really dealt with using Leia, honestly. And I feel like they tried a little too hard to follow a New Hope setup, and she kind of.
I think it's also that they're kind of gun shy about the complaints, which I quite frankly never quite got from the prequels. Because when people say they don't understand the politics of the prequels, I kind of scratch my head because they're pretty fucking simple.
Well,
There
here's the
was
thing. It's not. I don't think they don't understand the politics of the
Oh no! Like
prequels.
I watched Nostalgia Critic recently in his Disney Simber. I've watched a whole bunch of people doing recently re-watches of the
Yeah,
prequels. And
what I mean is, it's not like they don't understand it. It's more like the fact that it's quite boring, and it's like it's badly done. Basically, like, you can do good politics. Game
uh,
of Thrones does it well. Star Trek has done it well. Star
I
Wars
would
didn't
very
do it
much
very
argue,
well. Like,
I would
until
very
maybe the
much
third
argue,
movie.
I'd very much argue that Game of Thrones has done it well. But then again, I would argue Game of Thrones has done much of anything well. But that's a chance for people to rail and despise me for another day. What'd you think of Leia, Oda?
She. Okay, let's be honest here. Let's get some realsies. Now, there are already enough frontline, big exposition delivering characters already in the film. If Leia had been a larger part, she would basically just dilute the narrative and become a more of a fixture. And of course, there is the slight notion that they did want to avoid talking about politics because for some reason J.J. Abrams wanted to be as safe as possible, which I understand. Don't agree with, but I understand. I do think we're going to see a lot more of her, mostly because she's been doing like the Graham Norton show, doing all these shows. I think we'll see more of her though.
I also think it's safe to say that for obvious reasons, it was kind of important of the original three, the big three, that Han get the lion's share of attention this time around.
Yeah,
Because there ain't going to be time for more Han later in this trilogy.
Yep.
yeah, obviously, and I think also when you look at Han as a character as well, if we ignore the previous six movies, then and just set and imagine this is just a standalone film, then we're not really going to feel much for Han if he shows up like for 5 minutes and then dies. It's
Somebody on Twitter broke my heart today and a bunch of other people's hearts by tweeting out, now, don't imagine Han with a 5-year-old Ben on his knee flying the Falcon, the happiest he's ever been in his life. And this person got a lot of responses of, fuck you, man. I'm not crying, you're crying, and so on.
yeah, exactly. We spent like in addition to the three films we'd already spent, we hadn't really spent much time yet with we hadn't spent any time with older Han. And older Han, even though it is the same character, it is actually a very different character. Despite what some people might think, and that's why in many ways his death actually works quite well to a certain extent. In that it works as in like that's his full circle kind of thing. Is that he started out as this unfeeling, shoot first, ask questions later, always out for himself, not caring for other people, type person, and then has ended it not believing in the Force, and in the end has come full circle, believing in the Force, telling people that it's real, telling people the Jedi are real, the dark side is real, and trying to coax his son, now a dark Jedi, back to the light side, and in the process sacrificing his life to save somebody else, to try and save somebody else.
It's interesting to note. I just got done reading the novelization, and now to be fair, part of what I'm about to say has to be taken somewhat with a grain of salt because novelizations can be a tricky thing. Hell, the novelization was written by Alan Dean Foster, who wrote the first novelization and the first expanded universe, the first tie-in novel, Splinter of the Mind's Eye. But if you go back and you read the original novelization, like it describes Palpatine completely differently. Palpatine isn't a Force user at all. He's described more as a guy who became emperor with good intentions and then got buried by bureaucracy. And I mean, there are clearly things in there which was like, well, we have no idea what we're effing doing, and we're just making it up as we go along. Okay? This is not the same case with this novelization, but still, novelizations can often be based off earlier drafts. They can often be very different. Like, if you go read the novelization for X-Men 2, for example, one that always stuck out with me is that ends with Jean Grey not dying, in quotes, but with her getting blinded. And because they clearly didn't want to give away the whole Phoenix thing. And so on, or like the Avengers novelization, the kids novelization, ends without the big final battle. It ends before that, and so on, without the vision being made and all that. And that's, so novels, but still, for what it's worth, okay? The novelization goes into some interesting details on Han and Leia. It makes it clear that they were married, and that's been backed up since by the creators. And it also makes it clear that Leia knew about the danger to Ben. She knew Ben had this whole side of him. She knew that Snoke was after him. One of the great things the novelization does is it makes Snoke into this incredibly important and intimidating character, I have to say. If you're wondering about Snoke, go read the novelization because, boy, does he come off well. And you know what I mean? He comes off as, holy shit, this guy's scary as hell. Like, the novelization makes it clear Snoke was around in the original trilogy. He was hanging around in the background. He knew even before Vader did that Luke was his son and things like, I mean, there's all sorts of interesting implications about who or what Snoke really is. And
that could be really interesting to explore in the future movies.
And it leads some interesting credence. It doesn't come out and say it either way, but it leads some interesting credence to the current theory that Snoke is actually Darth Plagueis, Palpatine's original master. So, anyways, but Leia didn't tell Han about this threat to Ben, about Snoke, about any of this, because he wasn't Force sensitive. And she thought he wouldn't know how to deal with it, and she thought it was her responsibility to save Ben. And that's what really destroyed Han and her, because they could never say it to each other, and because she never said it, Han blamed himself. Han believed it was his fault. And in the book, when we get into the perspective of Kylo Ren fucking hates his father. Like, he thinks his father is a joke. He thinks his father is a lie. That everything that was part in his past is a lie, and that his father is a big part to blame of everything that's gone wrong in the universe. So, in other words, he's got daddy issues. Boy, what a shock! You're kidding! A Star Wars character with daddy issues?
A Skywalker with daddy issues?
Well, technically, he's a Solo, but yes. But anyways, so I thought that was interesting and worth noting. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I don't think we mentioned him yet. What did you think of the very scant screen time of Luke, Oda?
Well, now coming from my position as a Dark Lord, now Luke does appear as if, just appearance-wise, to be in one of two camps. One, he's like given up on the Force and put himself in seclusion, and is just trying to remove himself from the world because he's ashamed of what happened. Or B, he realized that much like Yoda, he needed to set a grand plan in motion and become almost sort of a light side emperor figure. And he then, using the Force, set in motion all these events that are culminating now into what's happening. And when he sees his lightsaber, he's like, oh, okay. stuff's going down and I can't relax anymore. Like there's that kind of look on his face, like
There's a
crap.
I haven't seen the movie several times now. I feel like the look on his face is a haunted one. Like he knew this was coming, but he really doesn't want to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely don't think that Luke has gone full evil.
Oh God, no.
Like some of the people have been suggesting. Well, I would have liked that. And maybe he may even go evil by the end of the trilogy. That would be pretty sick. But I really don't think he's there now. I really do think that he's still going to try and fight for the light. But some past with Snoke, Ben Kenobi, and him led to all of this. And we need to see how that happened in order to understand more. And at this point, we don't know. So I look forward to it, though.
All right, what did you think about Luke's scant screen time, Petros?
I think they could have gotten a better wig for him, but all right. So in all seriousness, how do you ask me how much of Luke do I want to see going into this movie? I would have told you said quite a bit actually. I would like to see him do some pretty cool stuff, even if we haven't seen the trailers. I'd like to have a really pretty cool reveal and everything. And you would think coming out of that I'd be disappointed, but actually I was really, really happy with the fact that he doesn't even say a single line, because it says a lot. It adds a lot to his mysteriousness and the questions we're all asking about. How long has he been gone? Where has he been gone? What's he been doing, really, etc. Is he going to come back? Is he going to teach Rey now, etc. I really liked the ending, and I think it's one of the best shots I've seen in a while in a Star Wars movie. Is that great sort of? It's literally a passing of the torch, or actually, because that's literally what a lightsaber was originally, was a flashlight.
Fun note: the last line in the book. Okay, the way it expresses that scene is, it has her go. It has it because it's for her perspective. Okay, it has her hold it out, and it goes, and she sees him, her last, her only hope.
That's pretty cool, actually.
I was like, that's the Alan Dean Foster I know and love.
That makes sense. I mean, Luke. I think Luke is going to have a bigger, an even bigger role than Han did in the next movie.
I also there's something to be said that really beyond just mysteries and all that. If Luke had shown up, he would have overshadowed everything.
Exactly. Yeah, he's for all intents and purposes in the collective mind of the universe. Essentially, Luke Skywalker is the main character of Star Wars, regardless of prequels or sequels. Right now, he's the main character of Star Wars in the minds of most people. And had he shown up at even at the end of it, it would have kind of overshadowed the arc that these characters were going on. And I'm really glad that it ended the way it did. And
it would have stolen Rey's thunder. It would have made everything that she did and what Finn did kind of pointless.
Yeah, and it would have also made us go, oh, you couldn't have fucking shown up earlier to save Han, you dickhead. But aside from that,
that is my one. As much as I understand that, that's my one disappointment, though.
Yeah,
we're never going to get another Luke Han scene.
Yeah, that's man, you throw that up, and I never thought about that actually. That's oof. That's quite tragic. We may get a flashback, but Star Wars has never been big on flashbacks in general. Well, who knows? Ryan Looper seems to like to mess with the space-time continuum, so why not? So one last thing about Luke is a lot of people I've heard before was oh, maybe Luke is Kylo Ren before the movie came out.
Well, please don't bring that up.
Which is a terrible thing. And I know Oda, you just said that you would like to have seen Luke. You think it'd be really sick if Luke turned dark. I think it'll be the worst thing to happen to these sequels if he turned dark. And
I'm just gonna go ahead and say it ain't fucking happening, just based on the trajectory of this movie.
Yeah.
Thematically, it would feel like it would feel like the wrong kind of it would make no sense for Luke to go to the dark side at this point. If you were going to have Luke be a bad guy, he needed to be basically the Snoke figure in this movie.
Yeah, and I still think that would have been the worst thing that happens to these sequels. Because
I don't disagree, but I mean, I'm just saying, regardless of my personal feelings, I just can't see it happening.
I don't see it happening either. I mean, Luke's personal journey, especially in the original movies, is to redeem his father. He does flirt with the dark side. We see him go to the dark side. And even in the expanded universe, for the brief time that he does, I thought that was completely ridiculous and pointless. Because he already has gone to the dark side, or at least flirted with it and come back out. There are so many great scenes in Empire, like when he goes into that cave kind of area and fights the shadow of Darth Vader, basically.
Yeah, I mean, if his sister getting threatened on the friggin'
Oh,
Death Star
that
by
is
the
my
Emperor,
favorite scene in the
if
entire
that doesn't turn him
series.
to the dark side, seriously, or if watching his nephew fucking murder everybody he's been training didn't force him to the dark side, and maybe that did. Okay.
So, like with, I think we're going to get to see a bit more backstory of Luke and Snoke, and we'll get into that in a second of what I think is going to happen in the future
Yeah.
stuff.
All right. Let me ask you, Oda, before we move on to speculation and the any final things, what's your favorite part of this movie? What stands out just off the top of your head from The Force Awakens?
Yeah. I guess if I had to pick a favorite couple of seconds, it would be Kylo Ren stopping the laser blast in midair and holding it there, like it
So
was nothing.
basically, the movie peaked early and it was all downhill from
Well,
there.
well, uh, there's so many little moments, but on the whole, like if I had to pick like a scene that was really,
Or an element, it's anything you want. You can say the soundtrack, whatever you want. What?
no, if it's not holding the laser blast there, it's the play between Rey and Kylo Ren when he's chasing her through the woods, and then he just like bodily stops her with the Force, and then just the look of terror that she has, and it's just sort of that play between them when she doesn't realize that she's like the goddess prodigy of the Force. But yeah, I would think those would be my favorite instance, and then my favorite scene.
All right, Petros, same question to you.
All right, my favorite scene is when they are at the canteen after the First Order shows up at the cantina and they start shooting everyone. Everyone's got their hands up, and the X-wings fly in, and we get what is my favorite action scene in the whole movie. And I think it's one of the best shot things. I think the cinematography in this movie is phenomenal, honestly. As with most Abrams movies, honestly. It like you get this gorgeous like shot of the X-wings of like Poe shooting up with like doing pinpoint shots and blasting the ground. I think it's one of the best action scenes. I thought a lot of the action for the first like hour, like 2 hours of this movie was great. It's the last 20 minutes it goes a bit to shit, but like I thought a lot of this action, and like maybe second is the bit where they fly the Falcon through the Star Destroyer, like in and around the Star Destroyer in the ruins. And I thought that was with the TIE fighter. I thought that was a great callback to the obviously to A New Hope, as 90% of this movie is, but like it was done well. It's a great scene. It didn't feel like it was aping it. It felt great. It felt really well done, and it was beautiful. Like some of the shots that have been done in this, and here is where people will cry. Like this is where people will always bitch about, oh, too much CGI. You could not have done half this shit with practical. A lot of it, like this movie has just as much, if not more, CGI than Revenge of the Sith, but it uses it better, and that's why it works, because it uses it with practical effects at the same time as an extension of the practical effects. It doesn't like maybe the most egregious offender of CGI in this movie is those squid tentacly things on Han's cargo ship. But aside from that, the majority of the CG in this movie is done really well, and it blends perfectly with the practical effects. And I think the fight scene with the Falcon and the TIE fighters is done really well, and that's a great use of both practical and CG effects. And I think as someone who used a lot of visual effects in my own work, I really liked watching that.
If you're gonna now for me to answer my own question, honestly, I think my favorite thing in the film is the relationship between Finn and Rey, and also between Finn and Poe. I guess I love the new characters so much. We talked already about them some, but I love the potential in these characters. I love where the film leaves each of them. I'm really, now that we've, by the way, back to the novelization for a second. The novelization does a really nice job of justifying what the fuck happened to Poe. And actually giving him, I bet this was never filmed, because in the novelization, he gets this whole extended action beat afterwards where basically he's been concussed and he's half out of his mind. And he gets found by this scavenger, and he ends up getting into this speeder fight with some criminals and he saves the day. And you basically get the sense that, okay, Poe Dameron really is a badass. But anyways, I'm really excited to see in the next few films. And I think the most frustrating thing about this movie about me in terms of the ending is you kind of have to pick up the next movie right where this left off. I mean, you can't really jump ahead, as we'll get into in a minute. But I mean, and it's a shame because I kind of would love to see for the next 2 years. I would love to see more tie-in, like the old Marvel Star Wars comics where we were just getting, in between the movies, you just get random adventures because they didn't know what was coming and they couldn't do anything too important. But you did, on the other hand, you did get to see Han, Leia, and Luke and Chewie going out on adventures and doing crazy stuff and teaming up with giant green rabbits long before Bucky O'Hare and all sorts of wonderful stuff, And I don't think, we can get adventures with Poe, and we can get adventures, especially with Poe, but we can't really get the three of them together, I think, because that feels like it would kind of ruin the next movie.
Yeah.
That's a shame, because I really do like these
Regardless
characters.
of when it takes off, it has to sort of when the next one's set, whether it's set immediately afterwards or even a few years later.
We'll get to that in a minute. I'm jumping the gun. Okay. So, I mean, I really like these three characters. I'm very excited that they're basically the future of the franchise, as it were. And I think there's a lot of room to go with all three of them, and I'm hoping for more along the lines. And they've got mysteries and they've got stuff in their past. And a little thing I also loved was finding out that Greg Grunberg, the guy who's always in everything J.J. Abrams does, he's an X-Wing pilot in this. Turns out the characters he's playing was one of the major characters from Star Wars Aftermath. In Aftermath, he's a kid. He's the snotty brat in Aftermath, if you've read Aftermath. Who, Aftermath is largely about this female rebel pilot coming home to the son she left behind after the Battle of Endor. And finding out the son's gotten into all kinds of trouble and dealing with all that and ending up forming an erstwhile team of a couple of other outcasts and misfits. And I really liked Aftermath, and it's kind of neat to see that this is that character, and it kind of really does start to feel, because it starts to feel like we're home, because it starts to feel like we're actually getting a proper expanded universe again, only this time, in theory, it really is all canon. So, all right, that's what I love, and then also I do love that whole final sequence of her climbing the steps. That really is just so poetic and beautiful. All right, so that is our thoughts of The Force Awakens. I think we can all safely say, go see this fucking movie already if you haven't. What on earth are you waiting for? Do you not like good things? Do you despise joy? Even the Dark Lord enjoyed it. Even the Master of Hate couldn't hate this film. That should tell you something. But we wouldn't be good nerds if we couldn't speculate wildly, crazily, and insanely out of control. And I'm going to start us off, and then I'm going to let Petros go. But I'm going to say, I think Episode 8 is going to open. We're going to get the immediate aftermath of the next scene. And I think we're going to cut then to Finn waking up, and it's going to have been several months have passed. I think that's the smart way to get around needing to do a time jump. So you show us the immediate aftermath because we need to see like a 10-minute scene of her and him, and then we cut to Finn and we make it clear time has passed, and we can go from there. All right, so let me ask you first, Oda, because I have an interest. Oda, do you think we are headed towards a redemption arc for Kylo Ren?
I really don't think so, because at the end, you've killed Han Solo.
Your father.
Yeah. You've committed a pretty atrocious act of the dark side. And
I mean, destroying a whole planet, destroying multiple planets and billions of people, that's nothing. Killing one old guy, now you've gone too far. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Well, that's because you did it on screen, whereas most of the deaths, save for those dozen people on that Coruscant-like planet,
we see the planet blow up.
Yeah, but you don't see the people. There's no emotional bent. If you redeem Kylo at the end, and let's just say he only kills like a dozen people between now and when he's redeemed, which would be impossible. But let's say he does redeem, then there's no emotional payoff for the death of Han Solo, for the death of those, we'll call them settlers at the beginning. There's no emotional payback for that, and it's like something is left unfulfilled. So he would have to lose like everything and be broken as a man in order for it to be anywhere near emotionally fulfilling. And I don't think they're going to go to that depth.
What would you say if what if I raised the possibility, the idea, what if killing Han is the thing that it was supposed to make him go dark, but it's actually what haunts him? What if killing his dad is what drives him ultimately back to the light?
The audience will still have an emotional investment in seeing a payoff. And while we as movie fanatics kind of know that, hey, Han Solo did need to die because, Harrison Ford didn't want to be there. They needed an emotional punch, etc., etc.
Actually, okay, one more interjection. According to Abrams, it was his idea. That originally the script ended with Han and Leia coming back together and becoming a couple again, and then Abrams was like, yeah, but then why is Han Solo even in this movie? Nope, he's got to die. And then they asked Harrison, and Harrison was like, fuck yeah. Okay, continue. Sorry.
I know that's what's out there, but much like George Carlin, I don't believe anything in a position of power tells me. Nothing, not one thing, because they are in the business of making movies and entertainment, and thus every story they tell has to be entertaining and poetic and poignant. And if the statement gets out that, oh, Harrison Ford didn't want to do any more movies, then that undermines the current film, so no one's going to want to, not no one, obviously, but then their people withdraw their investment. But yeah, no, I do think that he won't be redeemed. At the bare minimum, he's going to need to suffer, like a lot, and not suffer in the dark side way. He's going to need to suffer from an audience perspective. And if he doesn't, it's going to be unfulfilling for the audience. So in the end, he is likely going to die at the hands of Rey and Finn.
Interesting to note that Abrams agrees with you, at least in part, where he sees that moment as a moment of no return for Kylo Ren. That he says how this isn't just meant to trace the evolution of a hero that we've seen lots of times. What he wanted to also show the evolution of a villain into becoming a true villain, a character who goes beyond any hope of redemption. So interesting. What do you think of Kylo Ren? Where do you think we're going with him, Petros?
I think I'm in agreement. Is that here's the thing: we've done the redemption arc. We did it for Vader, and Kylo's redemption would not be nearly as satisfying as Vader's redemption at the end of the day. Because there's nothing Kylo could do, even killing Han, that is quite on the same level as what Vader did across those 6 movies. He was the Jedi Slayer. He murdered the Jedi. Like, he tracked them down and he killed them all. He was the guy who was he was the villain from the outset. He wasn't just like a conflicted villain who eventually came back, like from episode 4 to 6. He was the villain. He was Vader. He was the villain. And I think that's kind of perfect in a way, in that he should be the villain now. Like, we don't need a redemptive arc for Kylo Ren at the end of the day. We need a revenge arc, basically, for Rey.
Oh, Jedi does not crave revenge, Petros.
Yes, but we do need that revenge arc. It's whether or not she takes it or not is the other question.
All right. Well, speaking of Rey, and okay, so we allow for the idea that we've heard from multiple people that Star Wars will always be, at least the main episodes, will always be the story of the Skywalker family. But if we don't think Kylo Ren's headed towards redemption, it leaves an interesting hole. So let me ask, what about Rey? What's the deal with Rey, Petros?
We know she's a Skywalker. Let's not beat around the bush. We know she's a Skywalker. Whether she's Luke's daughter or she's Han and Leia's daughter, it makes no difference. She's a Skywalker.
I'm just gonna say right now, they better not fucking make her Han and Leia's daughter, because I'm sorry, if she was their daughter, then they've just pulled. Then the entire movie's bullshit. Because what? They know they have a daughter. I mean, it would totally fly in the face of this movie. Han doesn't recognize a woman who could be his own daughter. Leia, I mean, I see people keep saying she must be like twins or something, but that meant she would have disappeared at some point. She's got the Force. Don't you think? I mean, it really would come off as bad writing if it turns out she's Han and Leia's daughter. I'm just going to say that.
I disagree. Honestly, I think it works. To be honest with you, I mean, the fact that
So you're
the
saying
fact
you
that
think Han and
I'll put
Leia?
it this
So
way,
you're
she
saying you
was
think
hit.
Han and Leia are idiots? That's what you're saying?
No, but I think that I think with the first of all, we only see what's on screen. We don't know what's going through the characters' heads, and
All right. How about this then? When they're talking about their lost son,
and secondly, the last time they saw this girl, she was 4.
right? Okay, then let me put it to you this way:
It's like that same bullshit about
they talk about their lost son, but they never mention their daughter.
yeah, because they probably think their daughter is safe and hidden away, like they assume, or possibly even dead. They probably think them. For all we know, they may have thought Rey was dead.
But okay, let me ask: do you think Rey is going to be? I mean, we know Disney's got all sorts of plans. Do you think she's going to be the focus of the franchise going forward, even
Yes.
beyond Episode 9?
If they go beyond Episode 9, which they likely will, let's be honest, then I think that it will do it the same thing that they did this time. I don't know if they're going to
wait 30 years for a sequel.
Maybe not 30 years, but probably 10 years or so. And they may make Rey the mentor at that point and just age her up a little bit with makeup.
All right. All right. So you think she's a Skywalker?
I am 99% sure. If she's not, then it's kind of, well, for lack of a better term, stupid.
What if she's a Kenobi?
What? Well, first of all,
His granddaughter.
What? And Luke was going. Ben after he went and became an old hermit and went slightly crazy. He was going around just banging chicks, or
No, but we know Obi-Wan. If you've watched the Clone Wars, we know that Obi-Wan has flirted, pun intended, with romance before. He's come close to breaking the vows, and at that point, he's a man who has lost everything and who's also been deliberately told, hey, you got to go out into the desert and unlearn every fucking thing you know. And it's quite possible that at some point, that he didn't necessarily guard Luke for every second. Maybe something happened that required him to leave for a while and things happened. I'm just saying, I could see a scenario where he ended up through accident, through whatever, having a daughter, and then he hides her, and then Luke finds the daughter or the son, and then decides to. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Rey had some sort of experience with Luke's temple at the very least.
I could say, I'll put it this way. I will say this. I think for her to be Kenobi or anything other than a Skywalker breaks the story thematically. This they are like opposites of each other. Kylo Ren and Rey are opposites. They are Flash and the Reverse Flash, the Superman and Lex Luthor, Batman and the Joker. They're like they are each other's opposite. They are the negatives of each other. And in Star Wars, for a lot of it's all about a family affair. And like you said, it's always going to be about the Skywalker family. And in this case, we're looking at a new Skywalker hero.
All right, how about you, Oda? What do you think about Rey?
She's definitely a Skywalker, 100%. But I'm going to tell you that Finn is also somebody. He's
interesting.
He's
I was going to bring him up next, but yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get into that in a minute then. But yeah, no, she's decidedly a Skywalker. Because it's thematic. Because let's face it, if we only focused on one family in this series, then I don't think it would be fulfilling for the audience. Because it's like, oh, so really we're still continuing Han Solo's story? Because this is all just his family. Well, what about Luke? What about everyone else? And some other name that I could mention that we'll possibly bring up soon. But yeah, no, she's totally a Skywalker, and I mean that's just how it's going to be. I mean, I don't.
All right. Well, do you think she's Luke's daughter, or do you think she's Han and Leia's daughter?
No, she's Luke's daughter. Yeah.
So you agree with me? It'd be idiotic, and that Petros is just dumb and wrong.
No. See, they could go any meaningful direction with it, but until they emphatically state that she isn't Luke's daughter. Now, okay, I will put this aside that a traditional Jedi typically does not have kids unless needed specific cause. Luke may have had Rey for this specific cause, because romantic attachment, you can't do it as a Jedi. But Luke was also actually never a great Jedi. Let's all just be honest and real here.
I also think there's something to be said that part of the point of Luke's story is to move away from the Jedi way of thinking, that their way had grown corrupted, because the Jedi would have just told him to kill Vader. The Jedi didn't want him to save Vader. They would have told you once the dark side haunts your path, forever marked by it are you.
Yeah, like Yoda is constantly, Yoda and Obi-Wan are saying you must face Darth Vader, and by that they mean you must kill Darth Vader. And then if you look, if we go to the prequels for a second, what drives Anakin to cut off Windu's arm? Windu saying he must die.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think if whether it succeeds or not, the whole point of one of the big points of the prequels is to be a refutation, to refute the whole concept of what the Jedi Order has become, that they've become above the affairs of the universe and they've cut themselves off in ways that aren't healthy. And if only they could have fucking so much could have been avoided if friggin' Anakin didn't have to keep everything so secret. But, all right, you were saying, Oda.
But I mean, it's just how it's going to be. At the end of the day, I do think that in the final moment of the movie, that Luke does realize that his daughter is there. Now, to validate the one point, it is entirely possible, and I hope they don't do it because it would be stupid, but it's entirely possible that Han and Leia did give birth to a daughter, that they had 2 kids, but the simple fact of the matter is that Rey has a unnatural level of attachment to Jakku, like beyond any rational thought. She needs to be there, wants to be there, and to me that says someone has force wiped her mind, or at least has force locked her memories, and she's been put there for a purpose, because who the hell is going to go look for someone on a desert planet like that like doesn't support life, etc. So it's entirely possible that if she was, mind wipey or whatever, mind numbed or whatever you want to call it,
or she was 5 years old and she just doesn't remember very clearly.
Yeah, but then she wouldn't have that supernatural, like, I must go back. I know I'm, like, fighting.
She looks like she's someone suffering from PTSD, basically, is what I like a lot of this movie.
Well, I would say she looks like somebody who was left alone on a desert planet when she was 5 years old and has had to fucking survive completely on her own for 14 years without any parents or real friends, knowing that at any time death or worse could come for her. I also, by the way, when people say, well, how is she so good? It makes her Mary Sue. That is one last, she's so good because she's fucking... Luke Skywalker lived a sheltered life until he became a warrior for the first time. Rey has spent her entire life almost having to fend for herself and learn how to survive. She is far more... No shit, she's more badass than Luke was at the start of A New Hope. She better fucking well be.
Yeah, along the same line, though, also to be some realsies, she knew how to force persuade. And I don't just mean that she was able to force persuade somebody. She knew that if she looked to that guard and went, you will unlock this device and leave the door open. Like, right. She knew that if she said that, if she gave those instructions, that it would work.
And she did it to James Bond as well, so, that's pretty impressive.
You know who she learned that from, right? She learned it from Kylo Ren. The movie reinforces multiple times that every time Kylo Ren does something against her, she picks up on it and eventually springs it back on him. She is such a natural in the Force that to me it's clearly very deliberate. She, in some ways, her first teacher in the Force is Kylo Ren. Unintentionally. Because before she does that, there's the whole bit where he's trying to read her mind and she fights back and kicks his ass at it. And she clearly picks up more information from him than he picks up from her. Now, I just assume that's partly where she learned it. But I can acknowledge you could be. I do think it's going to turn out she had at least some history with Luke's training. You know what I mean? That she was there, and part of why she was abandoned has to do with Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
And the Knights of Ren and Snoke and all of that.
Yeah, and I agree. Speaking of Snoke, I think it's going to be interesting to see where the future movies take him exactly, because in this movie specifically, I didn't get a very ominous presence from him, but he's got to be. He's the big bad at the end of the day. Kylo Ren despite being the villain, the physical villain, just like Vader was, there's an Emperor figure. It's Snoke, but the Emperor wasn't really properly introduced until Return of the Jedi. He was a floating head in Empire Strikes Back, and he was mentioned in Star Wars, but but for the majority of the series, the Emperor wasn't there. He was just this floating. In contrast, in this one, we meet Snoke right away, but we don't know much about him. We don't know why he's in charge of the First Order, what his motivations are, etc. As you pointed out, Shaun, you've read the novelization. There's a lot more about him, that he's been around for ages. And I think that's a very interesting thing. You've got to, at the end of the day, both top and not top the Emperor.
I think it's very interesting to note that in the novelization, he never once is referred to or refers to himself as a Sith. I think that's interesting. I think that's very interesting. And I also think
what's even more interesting is the fact that if you go back and watch the original trilogy, the Sith are never actually mentioned by name.
Well, yeah, but we know now in the prequel trilogy, we know they were Sith Lords. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
But let me raise something else as an interesting possibility before we turn to the expert on the dark side. Those Inquisitors had to come from somewhere in Rebels. And it sure doesn't seem like Vader or the Emperor were training them. Sure doesn't. They don't call themselves Sith per se. They aren't, only two there are. Now, isn't that an interesting possibility? All right, Oda. Oh, Dark Lord Oda, tell us about Snoke. What does the future hold for First Supreme Leader Snoke?
Well, he's clearly not 20 feet tall, but because there are still some people who think that that'll happen. But I do think that we are essentially going to see, if I would have to guess, Rey is sort of almost a living embodiment of the Force, and I think we'll see her mirror in Snoke instead of Kylo Ren, because Kylo is a very conflicted figure, whereas Rey, even during the course of these movies or this movie, seems to have her shit together. Like, she's not your stereotypical lady caught in an action movie kind of, I'm gonna run over here and scream. She's like, don't hold my hand. What are you doing? She's rationally talking through things. She's definitely more collected and almost Jedi-esque than most would be in her situation. Now, she has had a rough past, etc., so who knows. But I think Snoke will likely be sort of her mirror, sort of her opposite. Although, I do kind of wonder, he hasn't shown a lot of range of emotion. Like, he doesn't appear to be your typical dark side user.
Yeah, he never seemed surprised by anything that actually happened. Like, he seemed almost like never surprised by when things didn't go their way. It was more like, interesting. Well, I've got a million other plans in the works, sort of thing going on in his head.
Yeah, it's just thinking about it, he doesn't. He seems to be kind of an emperor figure, but not the same kind of emperor that we're used to. Who is like, yes, the Jedi, they will.
Do you think he's a Sith Lord?
I am actually going to say yes, because they have made tons of statements publicly in the media that Kylo Ren is not a Sith, but I am going to say that it makes the most sense to me that he is Darth Plagueis. That he is the reincarnated or body-hopped Darth Plagueis. And if they do that, if they do Darth Plagueis as this body-hopping Sith, then they can actually give validation to the prequels by having a brief flashback or a statement from Snape that says, I once played the fool. I once, danced amongst the Jedi without them knowing. What hope do you have? Et cetera, et cetera. So I do think he is a Sith, and I think we might even get a second Sith later in the movie, because always two there are, although that is kind of a stupid thing, but the simple fact that they're not willing to state this person's a Sith, lends me to believe that there are Sith there, because otherwise they wouldn't even acknowledge. They would say Sith are no longer a thing. They would just say, after the fall of the Empire, Sith are not a thing. It died with the Emperor. But they haven't said that. They've just said he is not a Sith.
Interesting. I'm going to take the opposite tack. I don't think he's a Sith. I think they, like you said, they've been very clear Kylo Ren isn't a Sith. And even if he wasn't a completely trained Sith, he'd still be called that. I think this is deliberately going to move away from that because I think they want to expand the possibilities. I also don't think he's a Sith because it's pretty clear he was operating in the time of the original trilogy. And also, going back to Aftermath, when Aftermath ends, when we first see Snoke in the last chapter, Snoke, while not referred to by name, is referred to obliquely. A big part of Aftermath, okay, you see from the Imperial side, is watching some of the different Imperial remnants come together and try and form, a new way forward for the Empire in the wake of the death of the Emperor, okay? And so you have a bunch of different, you have some Moffs, you have some admirals, you have different important figures in the hierarchy of the Empire coming together, and they all, multiple characters at multiple times mention there's somebody missing, okay? Somebody very noticeably missing, and at the end it turns out that one of the admirals indeed knew exactly who's missing, and that she's actually secretly been operating on his behalf the whole time. And that actually, like, the summit, I'm going to spoil after, the summit fails, and it turns out Snoke expected it to fail, he counted on it to fail, because he wants the Empire to go back, he knows the Empire's got to go back, it's got to go dormant for a while, and something new has to take its place. And they're going to have to wait years, and he's got this long-term plan. All of it means that this is a well-known figure who was known in the hierarchy of the Empire. And there's only supposed to be 2 Sith Lords. And if he is Plagueis, then Palpatine didn't know it, and that really undercuts Palpatine, and I think he's dark side, but he's something else. He's something new. At least that's what I hope, and I also think because that'd be more exciting. Not that I've got anything against the Sith, but it's always the Sith. Always.
Yeah, that much is true, yeah.
Knights of the Old Republic, everything, it's always Sith. I would love to see some new dark side villains get introduced. Some new concepts, ones who operate in different ways, ones who have different beliefs, ones who aren't just the Sith again. That's just me.
I think if he's not a Sith, but he's still like a dark Jedi, as it were, or a dark Force user, as it were, it would also lend some credence to the idea that the Sith aren't just fallen Jedis, which seems to be a lot of, at least
that's how often, in the expanded universe, that was how they often were written.
Yeah, and like at the end of the day, that's the way they've always been played, is as fallen Jedis. Like, I would like to see, and especially with Kylo Ren, we see someone who, yes, is essentially a fallen Jedi, but we're also seeing someone who was not a Jedi yet. I don't know why I did that in the Emperor's voice, even though it was Vader's line. Anyway, he was not a Jedi yet before he fell, and I think he's really growing as something else, and he's not a Sith Lord yet. But what if the Sith have obviously a certain set of beliefs? They should have a certain set of beliefs. Like, it's not just as dark Jedis, but as like a separate order of Jedis that just happens to be on the dark side of the Force. And that way, I could also imagine there being other Force users who aren't actually Jedis.
Also, Kylo Ren is such a fanboy.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the big parts of his character, that he's like the ultimate Darth Vader fanboy. Well, he's such a fanboy. If he is a Sith, even if just a Sith in training, wouldn't he be calling himself Sith constantly? Wouldn't he be doing that thing where he's going, and I am a Sith? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get the feeling that the idea that Anakin Skywalker was Darth Vader was very much hidden from the public afterwards, and very much hidden from Ben Solo before he became Kylo Ren. And when he found out, that may have been what pushed him over the edge.
It would make sense if you're worried about your son.
Well, like let's be honest. Luke Skywalker is not, and Leia as well. They may go out and say, "Hey, we're brother and sister," but they're not going to suddenly go out and tell everyone, "Oh, by the way, that mass murdering guy who kind of caused the whole empire to be formed and killed all the Jedi and a bunch of kids, he was my dad."
Yeah.
Because then no matter how much of a good guy you are, people are going to turn on you. Like that's not something he would want people to get to have known.
I could see Leia keeping it from him because she doesn't want him to follow in the footsteps, because they're already worried that he's got too much Vader. And that's the big thing. that Snoke, you know,
That's something that Leia says. That Leia and Han say it's like he's got too
yeah,
much Vader in him.
right. So I that is my thought. Okay, one last interesting thing to note. I'll get your reactions to both of this today. Greg Grunberg, who I mentioned already, said that JJ the other day he was talking to JJ Abrams the other day, and JJ said he just got done reading the script for Episode 8, and now he wishes he had decided to direct it after all. That he's actually jealous he won't have the chance to direct it because the script is that good. So Oda, let me ask you: you excited for Episode 8?
Of course. Of course. I'm not quite excited for the Rogue One movie because we kind of know how that ends. Um, they succeed. But, no, I'm absolutely excited for Episode 8. And I think it's going to do even better than Episode 7 did in terms of the box office.
Wow, that is considering what's happening right now, that's an interesting prediction. Petros, how about you?
All right. So I kind of wish JJ was directing this a little bit because I don't have a grand amount of faith in Ryan Johnson at the moment. I was not a big fan of Looper, to be perfectly honest. I thought it was good, but not great. And I'm a big fan of JJ's work. And you can all shut up about this. I love the Star Trek movies that he's directed, and I'm a huge Star Trek fan going back since pretty much I was born. So like I watched all of TNG and everything. So I love the new Star Trek movies. I think they're very much in keeping with what Star Trek is for a new generation. So I really like J.J. Abrams, and I think he did a great job with this movie. And I think he could have taken it to a level. Now, on the other hand, I do think Ryan Johnson could be a perfect guy if he's guided right with the right people producing it, because at the end of the day, a director is the main guy in charge of a production, but producers are also hugely important when it comes to this sort of stuff. When you're guiding something along a very specific path, when when you've got a vision in line, producers are invaluable. And Lawrence Kasdan is basically helming the writing of this and helming the producing of it. So essentially, Kasdan is now Lucas, essentially. And I think they've got the right person doing that. Less so, J.J. Abrams is also executive producing it, and I think that's the thing. I'm very excited for Episode 8. I think potentially, and this is the best case scenario, it is The Empire Strikes Back, basically. It is The Wrath of Khan, it is The Dark Knight. It is the better movie, the one that takes more risks, the one that goes and has more twists and turns and reveals, and it's a lot more, and it does one of those better middle movies than one of those movies that's just kind of there for the sake of the middle of the trilogy. I think it could be one of those middle movies that really does more exploration of the characters. It separates the characters just like Empire did, and allows them to interact as individuals and get their own stories together. I think we're going to see more of Finn and Poe together because they're left off in the same location. I think we're going to see a bit more of Rey's training with Luke. I think it could potentially jump forward several months, even years potentially. And Rey has been missing for a few years now. I hope we're going to get to learn a bit more about what the hell is going on in the galaxy right now. Is there a republic that has taken over the old empire, or like what is the first order?
Petros, if you want those answers, they are out there.
That's the thing is that I've actually looked a little bit and I can't find it. But I would like. Here's the thing, it's great if it's all out there. But here's also the truth. I don't give a fuck if it's out there. If it's not in the movie, it doesn't exist. Frankly, that's just that like when it comes to the majority of people out there, and I'm thinking about it from a mass audience point of view. 99% of people who watch this movie are not going to go and read the novels or the comics or anything.
I agree with you, but I also think that in the end, I don't think it's a big miss for the film. I don't think
it was a big miss for this film, particularly. It was something that bugged me, but I could get over it. But if they don't go into it and explain it a little bit more, they've got 2 other movies to do this. I would just like to know what the status of the galaxy is. What happened after Jedi exactly? And I think that's a lot of what the next movie is going to be about.
I'm a lot more concerned about what happens after The Force Awakens, because there was a New Republic. It was formed in the wake of Jedi. It took a couple years afterwards with the Battle of Jakku was actually the final battle for the Empire. They were forced to sign a whole peace thing and all that. And going forward from there, the New Republic was formed. They created a Senate, all that. And eventually, the First Order started to rise. And the Republic doesn't want to acknowledge it exists. They want to just bury their hands in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist. Leia doesn't go along with that, so she forms resistance. Leia's not popular with the Republic, FYI, and she don't like them either. That's something else the novelization makes clear. It's like back and forth between them because she's a realist and she's already seen how this shit can go down. But I mean, so
Well, I
now,
would like to.
wait, but coming out of the Force Awakens, the government of the Republic. I mean, imagine what horribly, as much as I joke about politicians, imagine what would happen if we all woke up tomorrow and the entirety of Washington D.C. was wiped off the face of the earth, and the entire government of the country. As much as we mock and make, what I mean, it would throw this country into chaos like you wouldn't believe. And this is a galactic government, so I feel like heading to Episode 8, we're headed to a more what I'm excited is the idea, because both the Republic and the First Order have suffered major setbacks. So what if the next movie's very lawless, crazy, wild time where anything can happen? Oh, what a ripe setting for stories.
That's true. I mean, I think that's interesting. I just going back to my point, I would like to. I mean, yeah, I would like to see. Obviously, the movie has to be plot-wise what happens after The Force Awakens. But I would like to see, because there is a big chunk of missing information about Rey's past, about what happened at the Jedi Temple exactly, what happened to Luke, where did he go, what did he do, and everything. And I think I think some of that is also like what happened after Return of the Jedi, basically. Like it doesn't have to be a whole big flashback that takes an hour.
You're not going to get it, Petros. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If you want that stuff, you're going to have to go to the books. I'm sure they're going to address Rey and they're going to address Finn, but I really don't think we're going to get some sort of 5-minute exposition scene about what happened. Because
you don't need a 5-minute exposition scene. That's the thing. You can tell it through the story, and they did that. And they did that very well in the original movies. They gave it that like they were.
The setup was also a lot simpler in the original movies. In the original movie, it was evil empire, small band of resistance fighters. That's pretty basic and simple.
Yeah.
The setup for Force is more complicated. But all right, Oda, you wanted to talk a little bit about Finn, and I don't think I ever gave you the chance.
Yeah, but just real quick. I mean, it's clear to me that he's someone's specific son. Mm-hmm. Like, that he's going to be a more important character. And I do have...
Lando's son, the only other black guy in the universe.
I'll be really disappointed if he's Lando's son.
Actually, I have this sinking suspicion that he is... the son of Han Solo after he left Leia.
Ooh, but I don't know if the age of that works, but it's an interesting thought.
Well, I think what might be revealed is that I really don't see the First Order / the Empire, etc., running a nursery. I think, they have the ability to clone and all this kind of thing, so they likely artificially aged these kids while indoctrinating them. Because when they brought up information on Finn on that computer, it showed pictures of, as a child, as an infant almost. And I don't really foresee a good training regiment for soldiers, or stormtroopers in this case, to take 18 years.
I don't know. Have you watched Beasts of No Nation lately?
No. Although, but it is, by the way, it is clear that this was Finn's first real mission.
Yeah, but then, he talks about that he was working in the sewage treatment plant or something like that. It's just sort of, it doesn't pan out in my mind that they make this big reveal that he was stolen from, quote, a family I'll never know. And you're just sort of like, why would you have them state that out loud? Why would you exposition that if it wasn't going to come back?
I think I can kind of have a brief idea about that. Is that basically that plays into his character essentially. His idea, he's him running away and never have family he'll never know, is more about his state of existence rather than it is a big twist that has to be unveiled. I'm sure he could probably go looking for them and everything, but I'm not sure if, for some reason, for me, it doesn't play well. I felt like the fact that he was stolen as a child gives him a lack of identity, and he forges his own one. That's the kind of the point of it.
I mean, there is a temptation, I agree, Oda, that he's got to be somebody. But on the other hand, we already have one of the two major characters has a mysterious past, and it's certainly going to turn out to be related to somebody important. is it too much to do it with both major characters?
I think it is. I think Rey's story is about finding out about her past. Finn's story is about finding out about his future.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. What thoughts, Oda?
Like I said, to me, it would have just been simpler to just not address his past, to not even mention it, to not waste time on it.
But except it helps establish his character. It helps establish why he acts the way he does. He's known no other life than the First Order. That's one of the reasons he's so quick to run away, because he's got nothing else to hold on to.
I know, but I'm talking about all the little exposition of a family I will never know.
Yeah, but it's not really harped on. That's the thing. It's done. It's not exposition. It's development of the character. It's building up his character and his that he was this nobody basically, and now is becoming somebody by his own will.
I'll put it to you this way. I could see it going either way, and it wouldn't shock me. If it turns out Finn doesn't as a familiar face for family, I wouldn't be surprised. If it turns out he doesn't, I also wouldn't be surprised. Rey has clearly got somebody who's important. You know what I mean? And almost certainly, I do agree, she's almost certainly a Skywalker, and probably Luke's kid. Finn, I'm a little more uncertain of. I just hope he isn't Lando's kid, because that would be so fucking reductive.
And kind of racist, actually, as well. It's like, you couldn't think there are no other black people in this entire galaxy.
We know there are other black people. We've seen them in the prequels.
It's Mace Windu's kid.
He's Captain Panaka's grandson.
And,
There's your reveal. There's your reveal.
I can believe that people who have...
Wait. He's the illegitimate son of Panaka and Padme, grandson of Panaka and Padme, who had this thing this one time. Or there was the guy who replaced Panaka in Attack of the Clones. I can't even remember his name. He was so nondescript.
He was... Actually, no, I got it. He was conceived by the midichlorians, and Mace Windu gave birth to him.
Well,
there was no mother.
Darth Maul survived his fall, and he was cut in half. Mace Windu, when he lost an arm. Sorry, you were saying, Oda? I'm going to give the final word to you, Oda. Take us.
Sorry.
Did we break you up?
No, I'm just contemplating whether this is worth it to get interrupted again. At the end of the day, I can believe that, okay, we have Rey, she's strong in the Force, and Kylo Ren, okay, strong in the Force, and the universe, puts them together. In the previous movies, we've seen that multiple Force-sensitive characters who are tangibly related, whether it be familial or otherwise, do come together around the Force. I am still of the opinion that Finn has Force sensitivity, and that he very well still has an integral part to play, because if he is not Force sensitive, if he does not have another angle of which to be in this movie series, in this trilogy, then his narrative and expositional point and purpose is done. He doesn't have a reason to be here, and any reason that they'll contrive to be there that doesn't involve the Force or being someone's kid is going to be seen as tacking it on to keep, quote, a minority in the story, to keep a diverse cast. He still has a larger, bigger reveal coming as a character, because if he doesn't, then why is he even in the movie? Because then he's literally just diversity for diversity's sake, and that's one of the most hated things out there right now. So I think that we have more to see coming from him, because if not, why is he there?
It's an interesting point. I'll certainly grant you that. All right, that's going to do it then for this episode of Unrepentant Geeking and Ramblings. And I want to thank you, Oda, and thank you, Petros, both for joining me on the show. And I want to thank all of you for watching and listening. Hopefully you enjoyed the whole Geek Out session, especially this last, 40 minutes as we went really deep geek. That was some fun, grade A, triple A, oh my God, are these people have no lives geeking.
Yeah, I need to get my nasal spray.
Yeah. I need to get throat surgery, I think. But I want to thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope those of you who are celebrating holidays, when you watch this, I hope you're having a good holiday. And for those of you who aren't celebrating holidays, whatever. Just another day for you.
Happy day.
Oh, yeah, happy day. Happy day. Yeah.
Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day.
But yeah, seriously, thank you all for watching. Thank you for sticking with us through 2015. I look forward to the 2016 to come. Lots of fun stuff. Yes, Star Wars has come. Yes, the movie Force has awoken and all that, but there's lots more cool stuff ahead in the future. There's so much cool stuff in the future. We're all going to need sunglasses. It's so bright. So, and there's the election to deal with too, which, yay. Oda, can I move to Canada?
Yeah, there's a lot of requests for that right now.
If Trump wins, I'm going home.
Yeah, well, some of us don't have a home to go back to. We are home. I hear Canada's got this fresh new face. Ruling things. Your prime lordship. That's what you guys have, right?
Well, it's the moose with the largest rack of antlers.
Oh, that's how it works.
Yeah,
That's how
yeah.
Just remember, Oda, you're next door to us. So however bad things get, you don't got far to run. You think it ain't going to spill over to you? You think you're safe? You aren't safe. Nobody is safe. Trump is ascendant. And on that sad note, wow, that's a really sad note to end on. But what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's almost as depressing as Han dying.
Thanks, Petros.
Yeah, that.
Thanks. I'd actually forgotten about that for 5 seconds. I said, I'm going to go play Disney Infinity, The Force Awakens set, because Han doesn't die in that one. He just disappears. Seriously. Apparently he's in most of the game, but he doesn't show up in the last mission, and he's not on the Falcon when you leave. Well, I'm sure he's off doing something important. All right, that's going to do it. Until next time, then, from Channel Awesome and Unrepentant Geeking, I wish you all long days and pleasant nights.